Okay, I think we are ready to rock and roll here. Is everybody else all good on their side?
Yes,
I
sir.
am a
Yeah.
rock and I am
Sweet.
a roll.
First off, hi everybody. I'm Jordan B. You may know me from such hit classes such as Level Up for Charity, Rocket League, Super Smash Brothers, and significantly more other things that I probably have done in some capacity in my life here. First off, thanks for being here for the commentary workshop. Just as a disclaimer and a request, if you could do me a favor and just go ahead and mute yourselves here, mainly as most of my stuff here will probably be like calling on if there's particular questions, and there'll be plenty of opportunities to do so as we get into this there. Now, today, we're going to be talking a lot about commentary as of itself here. Shoutcasting is another popular term for this, and really just giving ourselves an opportunity to learn a little bit into commentary, especially for some of our fresh and new faces here from either Mario Party League or maybe they just want to generalistically get into some level or shape of commentary. Maybe you want to get into something like League of Legends or Rocket League, or maybe even the infamous classics of the Tetris World Championships and many other particular things that really fit there. But today we're going to be covering over a handful of topics ranging anywhere from what even is considered shoutcasting in the first place. There's a book that was written by a world-renowned commentator within the esports industry whose name is Paul Chaloner. We're going to be referencing his book a lot today about various things that, to tell you the truth, he explains way better than I will ever be able to when it comes to broadcasting and commentary, especially because he's been one of the pioneers that have seen from the literal parents' basements of commentary ranging to what we see today. And just generally speaking, has been a blessing to learn from people like him to really help to fine tune and perfect my craft as we go further and further into the world of esports and also just production stuff. So to preface, today's conversation is going to be prefaced with a couple of different topics that we're going to be touching with here. We are going to be ranging all the way from the start of what even is considered shoutcasting, or in this case, esports commentary. We're going to get into things of like, how do you get started into this industry? Then we're going to talk a little bit about different things of, how you can prepare. We're going to talk about a concept that's called the 4 Ps, which is going to be pretty cool to discuss more. Paul Chaloner put that tremendously well to put yourself in a great position to set yourself up for success when it comes to the broadcasting space. We're also going to talk a little bit about how to improve your own personal voice. I'm sure all of us, one way or another have heard ourselves in some recording and said, man, I hate my voice. And there are plenty of different ways that you can learn on how to better master, again, your craft and your opportunity to really kind of see that stuff here. I do want to mention for everybody that's watching this live, please feel free to use the Mario Party League chat. Just that in general should be totally fine for any questions, maybe any comments, reference material that you may want here. That would be the perfect spot to do so. I'll have it open on a different monitor just so that I can peruse that through. There is an open table at the end of all of this. This is slated for roughly about 2 hours. I hope to keep it at about that timestamp, and the goal here is by the end of it, we'll have any open tables for any questions. But if there is something pertinent that is important to what we're talking about in that moment, I'll try to keep an eye on the chat to make sure I can address those during the conversation as well. Otherwise, I'll take actual voice questions at the end of this year. But getting back to our subject, we're also going to be talking about the relationship of producer and commentator, and how those two can coalesce to really create a magical thing in the world of broadcasting that we see here, even on our channel, especially with a lot of the use of producer, more for us in Level Up for Charity for this particular stuff. In addition, the power of silence is going to be another big conversation here today, or it is also phrased as the art of dead air, given that the power of silence can be very beneficial within the right context and within the right situations. And then, like I said, I'll provide any materials that I reference here today as a part of some books to read if you're interested, some reference material that, I hope to have as some great examples to look back on, whether it would be great dynamics between commentary, maybe some specific callouts. There's a video reference that I have about even just utilizing the power of silence in the right way, shapes, and forms. So just keep an eye out if I do share my screen within Discord for that stuff here. So without further ado, let's get into it. I wish I prepared a PowerPoint, so I am sorry that I don't have something fancy and moving during all this stuff here. You could just pretend and look at my face, which I hope is good enough for all of you, because I do this every time on Mondays. By the way, tune in to our stream every Monday through Sunday at Level Up for Charity. Quick promo, easy peasy. Anyway, let's talk about this. So first off, I want to get into what is considered the term of shoutcasting in the first place. Now, I could get into the obvious things of, it's just when you talk into a microphone, but this stuff really kind of dates back to this here. And the best description I got from this was actually from reading through Paul Chaloner's book, which was published on Code Red Esports, which is a UK agent company over in the UK. So I'm going to read exactly what it says here because I think this is really, really good to kind of get the history of this. So the term shoutcaster comes from the software written by the good chaps. This is how you know this is from the UK at winamp.com and introduced what we now know as internet radio. Then a shoutcaster was simply a synonym for an internet radio DJ or commentator. As time moved on, it became inextricably linked to those who specifically covered gaming matches and tournaments. Over time, we've really gotten to learn a lot more in this space, and it is kind of crazy to think about this, that specifically the winamp.com days were the days that people were commentating Quake, roughly about 2002, 2004, that were covering over some of these key fundamentals that we see here today. I mean, just imagine, you go to a LAN that's going to have a ton of CRTs and you're broadcasting over a platform that basically coincides with even Napster and other platforms that we've heard of today. Winamp and them are not the same thing, but just comparing for anybody that is a boomer like I am and knows what those things are in this particular case. So it kind of gives us a basis of what shoutcasting is in the first place. It basically started out as an internet radio DJ and then really kind of turned into the person that is covering esports, whether it's the matches or tournaments that are taking place here, which is pretty awesome to go with. Now, you want to get into shoutcasting, right? I mean, that's kind of why you're in this discussion today. It's why you're watching this video. Thank you for watching this video if you are. Thank you for being here live if you are here as well. First off, how do you get started? Like, you would think that that's such a difficult question, but in reality, the best thing I can do is just use the Nike slogan and just say to just do it. One thing that I have learned from my personal experience, and I want to tell my story about how I got into shoutcasting and production to really kind of understand how, in one way, it is really easy, but at the other side, it requires the work to really get into these things here. So I started back probably close to 2017, 2018, roughly, where I got more interested in production means. I, at the time, was already running a bit of a podcast with my friend from Florida and just did some YouTube stuff in the background. So I had a little bit of production with that, but I wanted to take things to the next level and do something with sports commentary. So at that time, I got really into Rocket League and wanted to compete at a professional level for that game, but I also recognized that I was starting to plateau where my skill ceiling would be at and recognized that maybe my talents of being an extroverted individual that really likes to talk maybe could be served in a different purpose. And so that's what eventually led me to ask just one of the moderators at an organization that was called Mythical Esports. It was a small organization, probably averaged about 30 to 50 viewers for every tournament that they did, just to say, hey, can I have a shot at commentating? And I managed to get in on a Tuesday tournament and sent off the material to what is called Rocket League Central, which is basically like at the time was the central hub of all major Rocket League esports. The stuff at the time wasn't directly funded by Psyonix. It was still very fresh and very new. And, long story short, they saw some of the material that I had, which then led to a little bit of an unconventional situation. I went from my first ever time being in front of 50 viewers to then in front of 400 viewers, in front of a Gfinity at North American Rocket League tournament that was happening in the evening over the end of the week. I believe it was a Thursday or Friday. I got to play-by-play that alongside with a friend of mine who, shout outs if he ever watches this, CJ Link, who I got to learn a lot from his material, and just in general have somebody to lean on so that I didn't sound like a complete idiot in my second time ever doing this. Since then, I had put in the grind and effort into becoming the broadcaster that I am today. I went through periods in the Rocket League industry that I would commentate 4 to 5 tournaments a week. So just to understand, my college schedule was a full-time 16 credit hours student. I was also working roughly between 25 to 35 hours per week for another job. And then on top of that, I was also doing this. I was going to school for computer science at the first time that I was going for that. So you can understand how I start to combine a lot of these things. And it was a heavy workload. I genuinely started my days at basically the equivalent of 7 or 8 a.m. and did not go to bed until probably 12:30 every single night. So it was a bit of a grind, but I was proud of the fact of what I was able to put through and perfect my craft and do a lot of amazing things here, which then led me to opportunities to travel to places like Washington, D.C., to Chicago, to Milwaukee, even a couple of times back into Chicago for even various tournaments, some larger scale. I got to be invited to be a part of the Rocket League Championship Series at one point, which is like the prestigious tournament to broadcast their play-in tournaments. I've also been on the other side where instead of being the front end of the camera, I was the back end and got to do a lot of the streaming stuff that you see. So stuff like you see for the Level Up for Charity Mario Party League, some of that was sown from the seeds of where that stuff had come from me way back when. So that's kind of my story of how I got into commentary. Since then, I have expanded into doing Smash Brothers commentary from time to time. I've learned to do tournament organization, administration. I've also got into just higher end production means, and to basically summarize, I've worked on pretty much the equivalent of nearly $25,000 worth of equipment for just a mere event that was, I think I made maybe $200 from that weekend there, but 100% worth it. Would love to do it again in any case and form there. So that's where I kind of called that. You really just have the opportunity to just do it. If you have that passion, and this is even just outside of the Mario Party League stuff, consider just going for it. I mean, if you're not a part of the commentary crew for this season's Mario Party League, reach out when the next season comes up. Do some practicing and do a couple of things. We're going to talk about different ways that you can improve on yourself and whatnot in the Mario Party League context as we get into this further. But yeah, that's always kind of a fun story to talk about, is how I got into it and why I have at least a little bit of credibility in this world when I've gotten to work with people like Golden Boy, who is the what face of Twitch, or Axel Toss, who has worked different Halo Championship Series and a host for the Rocket League Championship Series, and just all overall fantastic guy. We even got to be friends with Twitch partnered streamers like Vern Notice and a couple other amazing guys through some work with Gamers for Giving, and hopefully continue to garner that relationship as we go through. Anyway, I want to move on to our next part here, which is going to be talking about the preparation for a broadcast. And Paul Chaloner, in his book of Talking Esports, and I'll provide a link to that so you guys are welcome to read any material from that after, It is a pretty quick read. It's about roughly 80 pages of content, and it is a great read, especially for people who just don't really have any idea of even how to get into this space in the first place. Side note, this was produced a couple of years ago, so this book does mention things like, oh, you can use XSplit for video streaming rather than using OBS Studio, like is today's pretty much dominating standard all throughout our production means. So this is where I get to talk about the 4 P's in production. And by the way, production is not one of those P's. But the 4 P's are probably something that if I told you to remember anything out of today would be these 4 things. I'm going to say them, and I'm going to say them a couple of times just to let you to sink in on this. Preparation, practice, passion, and professionalism. I'm going to go ahead and go again here. Preparation, practice, passion, and professionalism. So let's expand a little bit into what these 4 categories are. So let's talk about preparation in the first place here. Now, preparation is almost in a way a catch-all term, because preparation could be a ton of different things. It could be pre-game interviews. It could be compiling team and player information. It could be tracking wins, losses. It could be board count. It could be analyzing statistics. You could see trends like this person's been on a win streak for this long, or a losing streak for this long, or they haven't made playoffs in this many years. Have you ever seen anything NBA, NHL, NFL, anything that really is in the professional sports category? You can tell that they have a ridiculous amount of preparation that goes into things where they can have material that goes through. I'll give a great example. Let's just say that we're talking about Mario Party League, and I could talk about the fact that E77 is a 2-time Level Up for Charity Mario Party League champion. In that scope, that's preparation, technically speaking, to know that information ahead of time. When you enter into a broadcast, preparation is what helps you to exceed and bring things to the table that allow you to storytell, that allow you to bring things that really help to accentuate the point that you're trying to make as you go through there. In addition to players and whatnot, you can talk about statistics. You can talk about trends that you've been seeing, tournament information. You could talk about the structure of tournaments or leagues that they're going to be having in, the prize money that's in there. What are the qualification results? Like, all of that factors into what you would consider to be preparation. I genuinely have pulled all-nighters getting information about various players, their results, their information. I still remember there was one time I was on my laptop for about 12 hours for a 6-hour production, roughly. I used, out of the maybe 14 full back-to-back pages of notebook information that I wrote down about every single player and roster, I probably used about 20% of that material by the end of it, but I was so prepared for situations if anything came up or if something was lulling in the production, I could use that time to then call to some of these fun facts and really to bring something to the audience that maybe they never thought of before. I mean, again, I can give shout outs to people like Khan, who the other day decided to do pre-game interviews with some of the players and ask some questions that led that to his broadcast of like, I talked them, here are some things that I had found out when I did this research. And those are going to be things that we're going to find out more as we go into this piece. So that's preparation. And if you want my honest opinion, preparation is something that for me is definitely one of the critical components, because for me, going into a broadcast fully prepared has been something that has literally been the difference between having everything ready and feeling like I really knocked it out of the park and maybe did okay and feel like I have a lot of learning points to do right after that. Okay. Sip of my coffee is always a nice thing here. We're going to talk about the next one for practice. Now, this one's pretty short, sweet, and to the point, and it's just simply to practice. Say you want to get into the Mario Party League, you want to do commentary, you want to get better at it, you want to get to the best that you can be. Literally just go pull up our VODs from last season, mute that, and then just do play-by-play or color commentary over top of it. Sit in a call with a friend of yours that's interested in this production stuff too, and say, hey, I want to try this out. Can you be play-by-play? I'll be color, or vice versa. I want to try and do something to really hone my craft. Calling back to my Rocket League days, what I used to do is I used to, in the early days especially, I would literally save the replays from when I was watching over some of these professional players. I literally got to watch some of the best compete during that time, and I'm eternally grateful for that, because it got me to realize how, first off, talented these guys were, but second off, it got me to notice the little details in stuff, and it got me to practice and how to put things together here. And so literally just pull up OBS and just record your gameplay, commentate CPU games, commentate over the VODs that we have here. You guys have my full permission to do so. Just go over and really give yourself the opportunity to work on your craft. And if you ever just need 2 cents of advice, I'm always a DM away, or at least I try to be a DM away. If you ever just need, a little bit of coaching and advice here for stuff as well. I want to give a shout out to Dylan, of course, too. 14, more than that, probably close to 16 years of production experience from both radio and television on his side, that he also could be an incredible asset for some of this stuff here as well. It's definitely going to be well worth it. So just practice. I mean, that's definitely one that I think people don't do enough. And while Allen Iverson is questioning why you are practicing in the first place, I strongly implore the opportunity that you can do so here. Number 3, talking about passion. This one I'm going to keep pretty short, simple, and to the point. If you think that it's easy to excite another person about something that you're not passionate about, especially in a public broadcasting space, I can tell you right now, you could be the best BS artist in the world, but frankly speaking, you will always fail 10 times out of 10 in those situations. Having passion for something like this is going to be critical for what you want to do in this space. I mean, I loved Rocket League. I loved its community. Smash Brothers, I love its community, and I love what it's been doing, and I'm so invested into that. The Mario Party League has become my baby in a way, with just the fact that we've put in so much hard work and effort to make a production that is of the highest caliber that we can for what I would consider to be the most competitive format of Mario Party League that has ever existed in the world at this point. And so we take our pride in that. We take our passion in that. So every time that I step up to the mic or somebody else steps up to the microphone, that legitimately is us being excited that we get to watch something that's great. We get to see something that is going to be something we truly enjoy, and you know that when we're excited about it, we're trying to portray that excitement back to you guys back in the Twitch chat. So when I'm popping off about somebody winning last minute about a mini game or something, you know that it's authentic and that it's real when those situations come up there. And then let's talk about professionalism. So, okay, sure, Twitch stream, you might think to yourself oh, haha, I can just show up in a pair of shorts and do whatever. And in fairness, some broadcasts maybe let you do that stuff here. But it's really just about putting yourself out there for the brand that you're wanting to create, right? If I create a brand that is just dominantly me trying to make a bunch of childish jokes and swear and curse an absolute ton, and I'm bringing no value or means of professionalism to the table, first off, from a branding perspective, that's just a nightmare because you really start to narrow who gets to join you. And on top of that, you really just start to draw the wrong people, right? If I'm constantly cursing, if I'm constantly, calling something stupid, or, I'm being toxic about a situation on the microphone with this stuff, I just attract those people. I call to, even how we do streams 7 days a week at Level Up for Charity, we unofficially have a stream content guideline. And so you can really kind of tell, like, we've curated the community that we have based on the brand that we've created, based on the professionalism that we've demonstrated, and really just what we've put together as a team. And that's a great example that you can tell from within the Mario Party League happens time and time again. There's a great quote that I have from Paul Chaloner, that is, I want to call to for professionalism, that it kind of mentions what I just said, but I really like to just read it word for word because it's definitely applicable to what I think that shoutcasting and commentary really ends up being. He says, "Sure, there are others out there swearing and cursing as if it's second nature, but I don't see commentators doing that in any sport that I watch on TV. It can also be seen as cool, especially to such a young and highly influenced audience, but it depends on what you want to do with this. If you're out to gain some e-fame," you can tell that he's been around for a minute, "and make a small name for yourself, sure, going on an audio cast and swearing at all the players is going to make you look cool to all the 12-year-olds, but if you want to be taken seriously in this business and goon to have a career in it, it probably won't." So professionalism is definitely an element that you get to learn about, just the brandability that you have. And I'm not saying that, like, I expect everybody to show up in a suit and tie and always conduct themselves at the highest of statures. There is a difference, and there is, borderlines of having fun. I mean, I've used a fart with reverb over the course of a mini game before. So, like, there are borders to where you can put stuff in here. But, inevitably speaking, when I know that I'm on the microphone, I know that I'm presenting myself with credibility, and I want to make sure that the audience is able to listen to me, to be able to hear what's going on and the action that's going on in that situation. Just again, friendly reminder, if you've bumped in any questions or anything like that, feel free to use the Mario Party League chat, as I mentioned before, also available by YouTube. So maybe if you guys had questions, put them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them in that spot here as well. So we jump to our next section, which is talking about how do we improve our voices. And this is always one that is going to take pieces of storytelling and is going to take opportunities for you to practice, as we had talked about before. So this one I can kind of boil down to a couple of key points and then expand on them. First off, inflection. So inflection is a key part because it's literally talking about what are you saying and how do you want to deliver it. There's a difference between me saying the following phrase: "John just won the minigame," and "John just won the minigame." The fact that I emphasized that so much in the second one really told the audience that maybe there was a higher value to that situation. A battle that's coming up, for example, maybe somebody wins by an unexpected finish, and that's going to lead to the opportunity for somebody to maybe come out on top and inevitably win the game. We've seen that happen before. And this is a great opportunity of inflection where what you want to say and how you want to say it is a part of inflection. Let's talk about projection. Now, there is a huge difference between loudness and projection. Loudness is not, I'm not talking about what decibel reading that you should be at. Projection is having enough breath in your lungs and comfortability in your voice that you are able to discuss and talk at a manner that is still clear and easy to listen to. It is something that when I'm in a crowd or if I'm behind a microphone here in Discord, that I am able to be heard clearly and that I am projecting my voice so that, you all can hear me. I'm not trying to blow your ears out of the water, but I'm also not trying to stay 65 yards away from my microphone to try to tell you all a story that's happening at that time. Next piece is talking about enunciation, and this is going to be kind of funny, but I can keep a really simple thought to enunciation. Literally just open your mouth wider and then have a flat tongue. If you ever feel like you're tripping over your words, just remember, open your mouth a little bit. Let yourself, again, this helps with enunciation. This helps with projection, and it allows you to really help to make important talking points that would happen there. If you're in the middle of trying to make a valid point that you really want to entice the audience with, you bumbling over your words is always going to be a struggle, especially when you're on a live production in any case here. So if you're finding yourself on that, just think to yourself, open your mouth a bit wider, maybe just keep like in the back of your head, flatten your tongue out a little bit. And these key things are really going to help to keep you in a great position for enunciation so that people aren't thinking that you said a totally different word that came out beforehand, or that you just butchered your words because you just kept falling over what you were trying to say there. Now let's talk about pacing. Pacing is one that is very difficult to learn. Let me rephrase, to master, because it is one of those things that just come with practice. You might notice when I commentate, I'm pretty chill in the beginning of most mini games. I'm like 60 seconds on the clock. Look, so we've got all 4 competitors going out at each other. Let's just say it's bumper balls or something wacky, and there's somehow going to be a winner out of it. Those 4 are going to go through and fight against each other, and I'm probably not going to see anything exciting until the next 20 seconds. So that first 40, I'm just thinking like, okay, let's build to the tension. Let's build to that opportunity. Let's build to that moment. And then when stuff starts getting a little bit more exciting, I can start getting a little bit quicker, and I can start looking like I'm more invested into the opportunity. And it looks like we're sitting at 10 seconds left to go. It looks like it's going to be back to back right at each other. He's sitting at the edge. Can he stay on top of it? He's not going to be able to do so. He's out of here. He is knocked out. Minigame star taking over for John. Congratulations to him. And that would be a great example of pacing. I started exactly how I was talking earlier, and then I bumped right back in and started to build and crescendo to that moment. And that was a little bit of projection, and that was a little bit of inflection as well into how I put things together. I also want to just read through a little thing from Chaloner. Depending on the type of game that you cover, controlling the pace of the commentary can also help your voice. Speeding up and slowing down not only helps the flow of the commentary, but also aids you in gaining control over your voice. It can inject excitement, like I just did a moment ago, at the right time, and through not only speaking fast at the right time, but also knowing when to not talk at all. And we'll talk about the power of silence later on in this particular piece. And last thing, don't burn yourself out. Avoid fatigue. People like to practice, and I really appreciate that. But you also need to make sure that you are controlling your voice, and you are making sure that you're pacing yourself so that you are not trying to hurt yourself at the same time. Whether it's, even just physically taking care of your body. If you can't provide adequate breathing, and if you can't provide your voice, just like any singer or choir member will tell you, all it's going to do is end up hurting you 10 times out of 10. And it's important to make sure that you take care of yourself and try not to get fatigued or just don't stress something that can end up hurting you later down the line. True story, I've once done a production for 14 hours. I was on camera for roughly about 6.5 of it, and then had another 8-ish hours the next day of doing further stuff. And I gotta tell you, I think I took enough cough drops, that literally could have probably killed somebody. And I never want to do that again, which is why I learned after that event to be way better about taking care of my voice, to not call things. I don't have to, bring out the biggest voice I have for the turn 2 mini game win that somebody just had in these situations. And that's something to really just make sure. Just listen to your body. Just take care of you, and all these things are really going to help out with. So just to recap, the key points I focused on: inflection, projection, enunciation, pacing, and just to avoid fatigue would be my 5 key points that I would talk about for that here. Now I want to move to talking about the relationship of producer and commentator. This has been a more pivotal role for us in this particular Mario Party League, that we have had producers on the back end of things here. Shout outs to Dylan. I don't really know if I should allow myself to shout out myself, but I'll do it anyway. Shout out myself, and shout out to Music Man, who click a lot of the buttons in the background that really give us the opportunities to let you guys shine in those situations. And some of those things could even just be little things like maybe Killer Awesome, shout outs to Killer, who may be going on a really big conversation about what the leaderboard looks like. So he calls to the leaderboard and he asks us to move over to it. Or maybe there's something where we wanted to cut back to commentators because Typh is doing something incredible with her Bowser's suit. I don't know. There's a couple of things that just general examples. But, it's understanding that your producer and your commentary team your best goal is to make the best production that you can. And you don't have to be in front of the camera to make that happen. I've been in the ears of people that, frankly speaking, probably make about triple the money that I do nowadays in terms of their production value and professionalism. And I've gotten to tell them what to do on some things. They've gotten to tell me what to do on some of those things. And inevitably, leaving that trust and opportunity just gives you the best way to put yourself in that position. So I want to call out an example. This is something that had happened recently that our committee was bringing up to me to bring up for today. Commentators. Fun fact, in the application we had custom design for our stuff, there is a special piece that allows us to see the stats that are happening throughout the leaderboards. So, for example, who's in first all the way down to who's in 20th, that I want us to use more frequently. And when a commentator says, hey, let's go to picks and bans, producers are going to go, okay, I was going to have the stats, picks, and bans ready, but I guess we're going to just picks and bans. So now we just missed this entirely. So think about stuff like that and what tools you have available. And of course, we can still be in your ear too. So like if somebody says, let's go to picks and bans, and I'm producing, for example, I could be like, and the audience wouldn't hear me, but you would. And I would say, first, let's go to stats first. And instead of making that correction, like as if they heard me somehow, just be like, okay. But before we get into picks and bans, let's go into to stats here right now. So that's a great example of something to just utilize as a tool, something that I think we all can use as an opportunity for that. But all in all, you get to kind of learn that dynamic. And this is finally when I get a chance to start showing off some cool things here with how we've built relationships with commentary and how that synergy kind of builds. This is not necessarily producer to commentator, but this is just kind of building that natural dynamic as we get to grow here. So I'm going to show off a video. This is week 1, game 1 of season 5. That's on our YouTube channel. So check that out, by the way. Dylan and I are commentating with each other here. And one thing that I have learned is that he and I can gel very naturally when it comes to commentary, because we acknowledge what each other's styles are. It obviously helps that we already had a natural chemistry of being best friends, and it gives us the opportunity to really show some of the stuff here. I want to give another call out. Like Khan and Daikatana, I think with enough practice could be the next Rumpton and Froggy Dojo of commentary within the right confines of stuff here. So just keeping that in mind, I think these are some opportunities. So I'm just going to play parts of the beginning of this video to kind of show you guys what I'm kind of referencing here, for just like the back and forth, the inflections that I make in my voice, and how I'm trying to make sure that, I give Dylan some room to talk and bring some key points in, but also, try to build the excitement and build the hype for what we have going for us.
Of a century at this point with how many seasons we've done. That's not how many years we've been doing it, but that's how many seasons we're going into it. And ladies and gentlemen, I just have to tell you with extreme excitement that this is going to be one of the most competitive seasons we've ever put together as a part of this league here. Dylan, of course, you also a part of that same conversation as well, both in the league. It is going to be hype here. Dylan, first off, how you feeling, man? And secondly, how do you feel about leading into the games of the first week of the 5 seasons? I'm so excited. I'm sorry.
I'm doing great, and we have some great competition this entire league. I was looking over the schedule earlier, and not a single game is easy to call. Competitors, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them in every single game, and let me tell you, none of them are to be taken lightly. This is going to be the single most exciting Mario Party League we've ever had, and that is really saying something after the highs of last season.
Yeah, no question.
I cannot wait. We are going to be getting into some great matchups here tonight, including the first pod that we're going to be getting into.
Yeah, no question about that. Let's actually talk a little bit.
This is a great part right here. So we've practiced, and have been on enough commentary experiences before that he knew where he was just diving off for that sentence, so that I could just jump right back into it there. And that's just one of those things that you get to learn naturally as you practice with more people. I hope that this season, and my goal personally has been for you guys that are doing commentary to try different teams and dynamics to really kind of build those relationships that maybe you build some amazing things. So, I'll use an example. Typhon Dax. I said Daikatana and Khan earlier. There was obviously Rumpton and Froggy, who was a great dynamic. Myself and Dylan have been historically a great one to watch in the background. So like those are some ones that like you really strive for, and all that does is really just build to the opportunities of putting yourself in that position that you can bank and lean on each other, because I'm not the superstar of this commentary team. Dylan isn't the superstar of this commentary team. The reality is that us together in that dynamic is what made that production feel so next level in some of those situations there. So I hope that really kind of helps to draw a picture of how you get to practice and learn about some of these things. And in fairness, Dylan and I know each other for years, so maybe this isn't as fair to compare that for some of these things. But this is just a great example to call to when the situations call up for that. So I think that is a good spot here to stop sharing, and then kind of coming back into an important element, which is going to be the power of silence. So I now want to reshare, because I guess I didn't have to remove it in Discord, but it avoids your confusion for some things. But I want to call to a particular clip. This is one where I intentionally did not say anything during it, for the fact that it was built around the fact that there were 4 people who all had an authentic opportunity to compete and fight for each other, and the winner of that was inevitably going to walk out a rich man. If you remember, this literally just happened. This is week 2, game 3 of this season that just happened. And I think that there's a sincerely cool opportunity to learn a lot from this year. So we're going to go ahead and play. This is, again, photo finish. So if you guys remember, this is the one where Luigi and Wario, I'm sorry, I know I'm spoiling, got basically to the point that 2 frames were the difference between who won and who lost at this point. So just pay attention to how we use that power of silence for this, because this is what we're going to talk about in a moment.
It's very tight.
This is looking like this is potentially going to be Wario, may potentially be Killer Awesome. Oh, that burn is going to hurt the first.
No!
I don't know.
Did they both stop? Apologies, I got to start from the beginning.
Yeah, hitbox is weird in this game. Oh, okay. I'm off cycle.
I see Ray is taking very tight.
So there were about 9 seconds right at the beginning that I said nothing in that situation. And the reason for that is I started out this game and I wanted to see who was going to start out with a more incremental lead. It also gave me a story reset opportunity, because at that moment I knew that this battle was happening and that I wanted to now get into focusing on what this game was about to be. So I took that first 9 seconds, and I appreciate P-Mercs, because he also did too, to really just let things digest. Guys, there's a minute on the clock. Who's going to be the fastest around here? Because that battle minigame was going to matter. And now you, as the audience member, are seeing 4 people who all had a genuine shot to fight for that battle, now seeing what they can potentially do with the circumstances that they have there. So, you know, I build to stuff like this so that you can use the power of silence to the right effects and power. And this is something that you're not going to master in the first or second time that you ever commentate. I don't even recognize that I still have the peak ability to do that stuff here. Because when you first start commentating, you always want to fill that dead air. I mean, like, you feel like it's an awkward silence. Don't treat it like that. Sometimes there are opportunities where you could be quiet about something and it could wield a result that you never even expected that before. So consider that an opportunity and power for you in those situations. And those moments can really kind of be a definition of stuff for future to come. Sorry. I was just playing something, another video that I had referenced queued up here. So I want to talk a little bit about what the power of this is in the first place. I just talked about examples, but I want to talk about Paul Chaloner calls it the art of dead air, and I'm going to be calling it that for the time being here. I usually just say the power of silence, but the art of dead air is more applicable in this case here. So what are some key things that silence does? 1, it resets the story. Maybe you're between, again, that example I just used. Maybe you were between mini games and you wanted to use that as an opportunity to reset your story so that you could put yourself back in the position of, okay, we're kicking off with this new piece. You don't have to always try to find a transition between stuff. It's not good to put yourself in that position. Even negotiations and deals that are happening, I let you guys talk it out, because my input, unless it's like there's a silence there, I don't need it, because right at that point, I would rather be concerned about the 2 players making a crazy deal than me trying to say, oh, I think this is a good deal or a bad deal in that situation. It also piques intrigue. I use that example of that first 9 seconds in that photo finish clip there, because it was at that moment that you then started to sink in and intrigue yourself, like, what's going to happen? Who's going to take this victory? Who's going to be able to get the most money out of this and help out there? And then on top of that, it also just sets up other parts of the broadcast. You know, sometimes you just need something to segue into another piece or an opportunity. That way you don't have to do like and speaking of, and then do to the next piece that could be happening there. There's a great question in here, which is actually exactly what I wanted to cover next. And that's how much silence is too much silence? And I gotta be real. There isn't a concrete number, but a principle you could play in your head is about between 5 to 15 seconds. Because I think the psychology is after 20 seconds, most people consider it awkward silence, unless there's something that is in particular going on there. So it's important to distinguish where you're using that dead air, because there can be moments that, you know, you're just resetting this and letting it talk. I mean, again, there are plenty of moments where just letting the audience suspend itself is going to be a huge deal. I mean, even just the symphonies that happen in movies, if you think about that, and how there's like that pause, like any cliche vehicle, like action movie is going to have like somebody jumping off a ramp, and then whoever's composing it has like that moment where the music stops and you just see the guy go slow motion. And so you and the audience now are on the edge of your seat in suspense. That's a good analogy for how you would think of something like that in this case here. So it's common for you guys to be new to the commentary world and want to talk to fill that silence. It's something you have to practice. It's something you have to get better at. And it inevitably is the case here. But an important part to realize is that dead air is a choice. Like, it's not just something that just naturally happens. dead air is a choice that you make. I made the choice in there to not say anything in the first few seconds, to digest what's going on and to let the audience do what it was doing there. And that's something to really think about as you get into these particular cases. So again, some great examples to really kind of call to. Now, I have another video I want to call to, and this one is talking about a battle minigame happens. So another battle. This is the beginning of it, and then it's talking basically where you're going to see Rumpton and Froggy, where they let the battle happen, even though it's an RNG game, and they react to the end and then build the peak and intrigue for this one here. So I'm gonna let this play. We'll go ahead and talk about it after.
Oh, never mind.
Here we go. It's
So, killer.
in honor of music
Stupid
battle
rule.
minigame.
Ban killer picks,
Alright.
yes.
I'm gonna ban. Wait,
Oh,
this
they're
is
doing
mashing.
stupid rules.
Mashing, luck, and bad.
The
It-
middle
I'm
one's
gonna-
not
it-
luck.
You should probably ban mashing, but it's up to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna ban mashing.
Okay. And do you want Bill Blasters or Random Ride Killer?
You know what? Let's go RNG.
Oh,
It's not RNG. That was just the right
Type
choice.
is not saying
It-
that
it's
she's
just
really
like-
happy right
It's
now.
like pseudo RNG.
Yes. The amount of
Players are excited. Everybody's excited. The opportunity is there. And so now we build to the moments that we're going to talk a little bit about
RNG
the
is-
values
I don't
of
care
why you
if
should
I
choose
lose
some of these people.
negligible, in my opinion.
Wait,
Thank you, Type,
tot-
by the way, for saying you don't care if
Look
you
right here.
lose.
Let's take a look at these
Totally
shits.
terrible.
Totally terrible.
It's
Yeah.
fun though.
So-
It's very fun.
This is something in production that we're fixing this year, which is to deafen in more of these situations. So like in this moment, I'd have Rumpton deafen so that we can not hear the players, because I would likely want to hear why Rumpton thinks that this particular ship is better than the other. But just pay attention to Rumpton and Froggy.
I'm going to.
All right.
Like,
so in this
literally
case, Killer
be
is gonna
okay
want
with it.
to is one of
Yo,
the
miracles
almost
do
guaranteed
happen.
victory. That is the one you choose. Good. He did that. Next up, Fate's decision would be I'm sorry. It'd be so I suppose. Miracles do happen. though. Okay,
I suppose.
That's fine.
I suppose.
If Type says so, I suppose. Very, very good in a second. And then here,
Totally chose that one.
Alright.
honestly, either one is not very
Oh,
great.
here we go.
Difficulties ahead.
Difficulties ahead.
It'd be funnier if you won with the
Yeah.
bad
They
one,
say
though.
I got an almost guaranteed.
So now players are still talking, but at this point, Rumpton and Froggy are edge of their seats, just like the rest of the audience is. What is about to happen here? Again, this is week 10, Pod C. The stakes are pretty high for the players that are here if they want to compete to playoffs or get a better seating, and that tension's going to want to be there. So as an audience member, we're using that power to build this moment there.
Well, here we go.
I think if we add Kurt Angle
Almost
to the mix,
guaranteed.
I should be able to win at sacrifice.
Oh, here we go.
Almost guaranteed victory? Oh,
I'm gone.
Dumb.
come on.
Am I?
A pull
Am I?
out of So-So, I suppose?
Yeah, I'm gone.
Oh my god!
Oh!
Wait, come back! No!
Did that really just happen?
It,
Did I
it's
get proven
RNG
wrong?
Rumpton. Oh, no.
So right here, players, of course, talk in this situation. I would expect them to talk in this situation, given the fact that in any Mario Party game, I wouldn't expect you guys to be like, yes, I'm in an RNG game, and I would want to be very quiet. It's like if I told you day at the races, nobody should be cheering for their guy. That's hypocritical and lame. So Rumpton didn't really play into any factors in that piece. When he was quiet, that was phenomenal, because that let the race progress. There wasn't a need for him to talk about it, because at that point you were banking on the fact that, like, we just built the story of, hey, guy in almost guaranteed victory just got basically third in that game, or second, sorry, or that the two people that predictably were supposed to get knocked out got knocked out, and So-So victory on paper was not supposed to win by probability. Rumpton then came back in based off of his inflection with excitement to show that he was ready to continue to the next piece here, which is kind of crazy to think about there. Just reading your question, Waffle, is it possible to deafen if neither you nor your partners have access to stream controls and stuff, like neither you know how to deafen? So this is a great question. I will say this. producers are instructed to deafen the moment that we start to detect that you as the commentator are making a valued point. So that could be as many times as it could be. So whether it's Typh or myself, or if it's Dylan or Music that are running the stream, if I know that, like, let's just say Killer Awesome is making a comment about, the value of the next minigame, I'm going to deafen from the stream side so that there's a focus that, you can technically deafen yourself too if you wanted to, but that isn't obviously what shows up from a stream perspective there. So, and it's learning curves. I can't guarantee which one's going to be better in those instances and considerations there. But yeah, there's one more quote I wanted to give from Paul Chaloner regarding the piece here for dead air. So he says, there are many times when you can use dead air, but one of the most powerful is during the winning moment, especially when it's a grand final and a big stage. Let the pictures do the work. Let the emotions come through the screen rather than talking over them. It's unlikely you could ever do it justice, no matter how great a commentator that you are. And all of the best sports moments have the perfect use of dead air at the point of winning a championship, cup, or title. And I 100% agree with that. I've seen NBA finals where they've made, where they basically just won the game, and at that point they're about to they're hugging each other, and you want to let the emotions come out in those moments. The big victory that happens on grand finals, or the last finals game that puts somebody over, like Rumpton 2 seasons ago, who was successful as champion and made himself was able to come back in circumstances that were practically unforeseen, and were so specific to have to happen. You really want those moments to really reflect themselves and play out there. And that's definitely a great example of that here. So anyway, link in description if you want to see the material that I talked about today. Talking Esports is where a lot of some of my reference material for Paul Chaloner had come from. In addition to that, you can check out our YouTube channel for any of the YouTube content that we just pulled from there, and of course our Twitch channel for any of the clips and videos you can see. And then during this time, the Level Up for Charity Mario Party League is live. You can always check us out over there. Would love to see you tune in on Saturdays and Sundays for one of the best Mario Party Leagues here out in the world at this current time in terms of competition. There's some phenomenal players that are in it, and this week will of course be in the same weight as those come up here. So link in the description for Paul Chaloner's new book, which is This is Esports and How to Spell It. Strongly encourage you the opportunity to kind of show that off and really see that play out here, but definitely worth the watch, worth the wait, and would definitely like to see you guys join in on that part. So that being said, that is surprisingly everything that I compiled here for today for our workshop. I did advertise 2 hours. It looks like I managed to be crafty and be eloquent enough to talk about it in an hour. So anybody that has any questions, you are welcome to either type them in the Mario Party League chat, or if you want to go ahead and unmute, you are welcome to go ahead and ask your question as well here. So you'll get an hour back, unless of course we get an absolute ton of questions, but the floor is open for anybody that has any questions. I'll go ahead and wait.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Go ahead, Typh.
Okay, so this season I have been kind of having the floor open for more main quote unquote like main commentator roles, and more having, and then being like kind of promoted from side commentary. And it's been exciting, but it's been a little bit intimidating, and I want to make sure I give my commentary partners the floor to, speak themselves and, give their opinion on certain situations. What do you think are the best ways to open the floor to your commentary partner?
Yeah, this is one of those things that I talk about, building that dynamic, right? It's, you kind of talk about the primary and secondary commentators, and to tell you the truth, I really try to think that the commentary team plays a 50-50 role, that someone is not a senior over another person. Obviously, the experience behind them is going to help a lot in this situation. So like Typh, you banking with another person because you've done this before, can be a valuable experience to show people kind of what you've learned in that timestamp. But my recommendation in those moments is just don't forget you got a partner, for example, P-Mercs' first time was for commentating was last week, and I didn't want to come out here and try to talk over him. So whenever he was trying to bring a point, I would just let myself basically just shush in that moment and let him finish his point that he was coming across here. But if it felt like he didn't want to contribute much there, maybe I would poke a question to him from time to time. And that is universal for both play-by-play and color commentary. So like Typh, if you and I are working together, I wouldn't want you to feel intimidated for my experience by anything. My goal is that I would want you to feel comfortable so that we would be able to share like a healthy commentary relationship that basically would give us the opportunity to go, all right, let's make something freaking awesome today by what we're talking about there. So just remember you have a partner. You're both in it to give a great show and to give it your all. And just remember that if, maybe one of your guys is struggling, maybe throw them a bone sometimes. Toss a question that may be intuitive to bring up here, an open-ended question that you guys can both talk about, or, maybe there's a fact that you want to bring forward. There's so many different ways that, you can talk to each other about stuff. I mean, I've literally been in dead air situations that I was like, I'll use somebody that's in here as an example. Con, last 2 weeks here have been really rough for It's Jordan B, sitting with 2 straight 4th places, focusing into this week. What are some key identifiers from you, when you've watched through his play style, that you really think that he should be focusing on for this week? That opens the door now for whatever Con wants to say. And now he's empowered to do it, more than importantly, because I just gave him the credibility to think that he's going to have a lot of this stuff in place. So I hope that answers your question. It was kind of long-winded, but...
No, that was definitely helpful. Thank you.
Awesome. Floor is open if anybody else has any other questions here.
This isn't really a general question. It's more like, is there any advice you have, like, specifically for, like, me about how, like, I've been commentating so far this season that you haven't already said? Like, yeah.
Sure. So for those that are watching back on YouTube, that's the great and mighty Waffle Captain that just said that. So Waffle, here's something. I'm going to give you the really good things that I like about your style, and then things that I think could always be honed down the line here. Waffle, you've always been somebody that has always had an infectious positivity to whenever that you've stepped into any production standpoint ever. Even just looking at the funny screenshots that people referenced, or the intros that you would do like a specific pose or something like that. Like that's brandable, and it gives you something that lets you be unique from other people. And I think that is an infectious piece to the puzzle that lets you be you, which is obviously tremendously important. But on top of that, it lets you bring that energy level that you have into play here. So like when you see something as an exciting moment, you get excited for that moment, Waffle. Like I don't have a question that you have a passion issue with Mario Party. I think you love this game, no matter how many times I hear you commentate about it, from your first time even to today. So, and that's something I can never train somebody right there. It's just the passion that you have behind something. If I were to give you advice on what to improve on, honestly, would just, continuing to make that practice. There are sometimes points where I think you could make inflection in situations like where we just talked about today. Grand opportunities that maybe give you an amazing opportunity to hone your voice and to make things sound the way you want them to, right? So like if you wanted to portray to the audience, hey, this situation just happened and I'm really excited about it, your inflection is going to be a big piece of that puzzle. Your projection's great. Your enunciation historically has been pretty good, except for whenever you meme about different format for the word. But I know that's just a joke that you do, so that's I understand. But just take those moments to just focus on your projection, focus on your inflection. And I think that you would be a phenomenal player. And don't be afraid to expand your vocabulary too, right? Like, think of just the situations that come up, even new metas or new strategies. The knowledge of your game can always improve. Just like for you, I just think it's just the experience, man. I think you've been infectious in how you performed, and you've had a significant improvement since we took you on from last season. And you've definitely been one of my favorites to kind of watch for. Not to show bias for anybody, but I did want to just call it out since you asked.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the advice so much. Yeah, I'm gonna mute now. But yeah, thanks.
All right, floor is open if there's any other questions. I don't know if Khan or maybe Toad or heck even Killer, if you guys had any questions. If not, then we can always wrap it up. I'm also keeping an eye on chat if you want to just type in there too.
Yeah, I guess I do have something. So a lot of the times, at least to me anyways, whenever I just start kind of spitfiring or just trying to get through thoughts through my head, sometimes like my mouth does the talking and then I'll hit that roadblock, or I'll make a mistake and then immediately course correct to try and fix that. Is there any way I could help alleviate that issue, or would that be more something just practice?
Yeah, here's how I would put this. You're basically this is I guess for the YouTube part, I want to do this. Killer Awesome asked this question here. So Killer, that is always just an issue of, so there's two ways I categorize it. One of them is about your pacing. You start to think that you need to start getting faster, but you don't have the words to back it up here. And the best thing that I could say is just to train your filter better. You know, like, because if you're just in the middle of a sentence and you can't come into that sentence and you don't even know what you said, or now you have to retract it multiple times, then you start to lose credibility with the audience, and it just inevitably becomes more painful for you as you cross the line there. So I would just say, Killer, if you're experiencing issues where like you just start to talk and you kind of start losing the track of your sentence, just slow down and let your brain catch up to your mouth, so that you can bring the point that you want to bring to the table. Because, you know, maybe you're color commentary one day and you have this big thing that you want to point out for the audience about this particular battle or this duel that is, and what it's at stake. And if you want to make those recommendations, you know, you want to make sure you're thinking about what you're going to bring forward to the table here. Maybe even write stuff down if you don't feel like you have that stuff here too.
Alrighty, thank you.
Got a question from Khan in the chat. Let me just take a sip of water before I go. Okay. Let's see. Obviously, we want to avoid long, drawn-out analytical commentary moments because the commentary VC coexists with the player VC. If the commentators happen to be mid-analysis and a really important dialogue is brought up from the players, like a big politics moment, what would be the best way to disengage from the commentary analysis so we can shut up and listen in on the politics during the power of silence? Do we just go like, well, hold up, what's going on now? Or something like that? That is a great question, actually, Khan. So there are times where this just happens, and I can't give you a perfect way to get out of this. You know, maybe you were making a point that emphasized the use of something on the board, and right in the middle of that, somebody hit a boo, and now they're talking about a deal that they want to cross there. And for that person talking, if they call to understand that is happening, here's an example. What I've done in the past is I'll go, looks like players are trying to make a deal. Let's listen in on this. Or even what you said is okay to push in there too. Or even just not even saying anything at all and just letting your thought just finish and then go to the player to talk about that. And that's totally fine to also put in there as well. So there really isn't a concrete way to have this, but I will tell you that from my experience, it's just something that feels natural to you to bring up to transition. And sometimes it literally is just making dead air for that situation and just not talking about it. Noah, as someone who works in basically the stagehand position professionally for live shows, awesome, by the way, I have a quick question. How important is it to have a close relationship with the rest of your team? And do you have any advice to work better with that team? This goes for not only co-commentators and producers, as we talked about, but even with the people who contribute something small like those on standby that maybe are just for mic adjustment. I love this question because I have worked from teams of literally me to teams of 22 people that did stuff with stage production in the past and some of these things. And I'm going to just boil this down to one key word, and that's trust. Because frankly speaking, everybody in that room has a particular role. I don't care if they are the crappiest person to talk to or they didn't take a shower for 3 weeks. Those are the people that are alongside with you for the journey to make that production the quality that it is there. And if you can't cohesively work with that team and trust that their job and their skill set and their abilities are not going to make the next level of production that you want to make, then I don't think it's worth it at all. So like Noha, in your case, if you've ran into cases where, you maybe were pretty distant with one person over another, when the going gets tough and the stress really sets in, and again, I call it to those like 14-hour production days, there were points where I sprinted in a college campus from literally one auditorium to the other auditorium, and I think I probably put in 25,000 steps that day. And it was because there were situations where I wasn't even in the wrong room. I was in the wrong room, and they were like, hey, what are you doing? You need to get over here right now. And for me, they needed to trust me that I was going to be there. So I prioritized that I needed to be there. Otherwise, if they can't trust me, then this starts to be a bigger pain in the butt as we go along here. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. Trust is a big thing for me on those things. Toad, I saw you on mute.
Yeah, I have a question. You may have gone over this a little bit already. I just want to make sure. What would be a good way to just kind of like transition between like when you got something to say and your like co-commentator, like when you just kind of want to bounce something to them or just kind of have them expand on something you think? I hope I explained that well enough.
Oh, that is something that is always really interesting to learn about. So the key is to in how you focus your inflection points is a great example of this. So I'll give you a good example of one that is not good and one that is good. So I'll do a sentence for you, Toad, that like hypothetically I would want you to get back in and then make a point right afterward, right, as my co-commentator. John just took care of the ball and it looks like it's going really well, and I think we're going to be sitting in a great position. You thought my mic cut out during that period if you weren't watching the video at that moment, which then confuses you because you don't know if that's the point that you jump in. So now then I think that silence just happened and that after a moment or two, I'm just going to jump right back into things. But then you may think, oh, this is my time that I can make a point here. Versus, and John looks like he's got the ball. He's going to be able to make it all the way here to the 10-yard line. We'll see where things go from there. It felt a lot more confident in the second time I did that I was, finishing my sentence and that I was finishing my point to make sure that I was able to get to a point that as my co-commentator, you knew that I was done making my point, so you can go ahead and move on to your next segment. And I bank on you to do the same thing to go forward. I want to, this is actually great to go back to Dylan and I's piece here. So let me go ahead and push this up here. So there are points where you can tell that Dylan and I finish a sentence, and then the other one is like, that's when it sounds like he's done. That's the inflection point. Okay, great. Next thing.
About what's going to be going on here. So we have Pod A coming up for us and Pod E in today's selections here. We are going to be specifying what pods are playing in our titles from now on here. So if you're watching back on Twitch, you can also take a look at that and compare it to what the MPL schedule. Side note, exclamation point MPL schedule, MPL results are the two big commands you want to look for. And of course, you're looking for rule set of how we do things. It's exclamation point MPL dash rules as well. It's all also available on our website. You can also just check it out flat out right over there if you really just want to and just feel so inclined in that same conversation here as well. But folks, we are very excited here. Pod A, including of Froggy Dojo, Killer Awesome, Owen, and Type. Now, 2 of these 4 names are very familiar for us here, so I want you to.
You can tell I looked over to him.
Dylan, talk to me a little bit about.
And I posed him a question, so this is even easier to tell that I was going to be done with it.
Them last season for us.
Well, Froggy Dojo, the longest tenured of the.
You see how quickly he jumped back in, though, to know that when I was done with my sentence? Like, that, again, that's practice right there. That's knowing when that person's going to be finishing their sentence. And in addition to that, you really get to see moments like this more naturally. Now, this is in person, so yeah, we are kind of cheating a little bit here because normally that isn't as natural on any kind of video call ever. So just keep that in mind when that situation comes up. But it was a great question, though. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I think we're hitting the home stretch, but I just want to open the floor one last time for any last questions. I see Killer's typing, so I'll just verify that is for a question. Unless he's just saying that I'm regarded as handsome and desirable. Okay. Got it. All right. Well, I think that this will conclude our commentary workshop for today. I do really appreciate everybody that, of course, joined in either live or is going to be watching this back on YouTube. As a side plug, I do strongly encourage you to get a chance to check out Paul Chaloner's books. Again, link in the description. I'm also going to provide those in the Mario Party League chat for stuff so that you guys can have this. And if anybody here has any questions about commentary or needs any advice or wants me to look over any VODs and watch information with them, I'm more than happy to do so. This is something I've always had a passion for, always enjoyed that I got to be really kind of at a top level when it came to commentary, and I hope to continue to provide that experience to not only make our level up for charity productions next level, but on top of that, make yours too. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. We're going to stop the recording here, and I hope you have a great rest of your night.